Booktube, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me and this is the first time you're seeing my face, hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's going to be happening today. If you are not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, as you can see from today's title of the video, I have a book review for you. And this is all on Sarah J. Maas's House of Earth and Blood, the first installment of the Crescent City series. This was my poll pick in January for a full book review out of my January TBR. So without further ado, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking about this book. Okay, so as I said, this is on Sarah J. Maas's House of Earth and Blood, first installment of the Crescent City series, and this was my poll winner for my January TBR for a full book review. This is something I started in 2023. At the beginning of each month when I list my TBR, I pick a few books and then my subscribers pick, and the one that gets the most votes by the first weekly wrap of that month gets a full book review on that book. A few stats about this book before we get into it. This is the first installment of a series, and right now currently there are 2 installments out, and this is the third series by Sarah J. Maas that she has started. We do have triggers for drug use, murder, graphic sexual situations, and we do have some classism experiences in this book, which is a little bit, it's not new for Sarah, but it's definitely more poignant in this book than it is in the other installments. In her other series, we do have classism in those, but it's definitely a major player in this book, for sure. Now, why did I choose this book? Well, this book actually has a really funny story. I initially read it for the SJM read-along, which is a read-along hosted by Jen over the Book Refuge. She started in April of 2022, where we read all of Sarah J. Maas's published works in publication order to see if we could find ties and connections. Now, when I took part in that read-along, that was the very first time I ever picked up a Sarah J. Maas book. And obviously, it was not this one because we read them in publication order. However, this is, the very first Sarah J. Maas book I ever purchased. I bought this book when it originally came out with every intention of reading it, and I never got to it. And now reading it after reading the entirety of the Throw Glass series and the original trilogy of the ACOTAR series, I'm very happy that I waited. Very, very happy. The reason why I picked this up and not any of her other series is because this was sold in the adult fantasy section and her other series were not at the time. Now they have been moved over and mixed in within young adult and adult, but at the time this was the only adult fantasy from her, and I heard rave things about her as an author, but I just wasn't feeling the young adult angsty vibe at the time when I purchased this book. So this is the very first book I've ever purchased of Sarah J. Maas, but this is not my very first Sarah J. Maas book. Long story short. A brief summary before we go into what I believed what worked and what didn't work in this book. We follow Bryce Quinlan and Hunt Alathar, or Alathar, I'm not quite for sure how to pronounce their name. Bryce is the half-fae party girl who is best friends with Danica, who is the most powerful alpha of the Pack of Devils. And the Pack of Devils are the members of the auxiliary in Crescent City. This whole book takes place in literally one city. One city, and Bryce happens to be best friends with the lead enforcer of this city. But after a night of partying on her own, Bryce comes back to their apartment that she shares with Danica and finds Danica and the entire pack murdered, obliterated, assaulted, gore upon gore, okay? More events transpire that night, but the end result is that after that moment, we have a 2-year jump where all of these events start coming back and they have to go back to that original night to figure out what is going on. Now, this 2-year jump, Bryce is working what looks kind of like a museum curator type deal. She works for a woman who gathers antiquities and sells them. That's kind of what her job entails. And she is met by a man named Hunt Alathar, who is a fallen angel and is tasked by the mayor of the city, essentially, to help solve a series of murders that have started to happen that seem to be surrounding Bryce. And all of these murders come back to that night 2 years ago when her whole world was turned the fuck upside down. And that's where our story really kicks off. Now, what worked in this book for me? I loved the plot line. I thought the plot line was really, really good. We have a mystery thriller, which is new for me for Sarah J. Maas. We have this, we're looking for these specific pieces. We're solving this murder. We have some family dynamic drama on Bryce's half. And we also have a lot of political intrigue within the Crescent City hierarchy. And then we also have this classist kind of style with this past war element. Lots and lots of multiple plot lines, very, very reminiscent of any Sarah J. Maas. She has always multiple plot lines going, and she handles them and juggles them very, very well. And she did it in this book as well. The world building in this, what the fuck? Okay, what the fuck? So, brand new world, and it's all in one city. It is all in this little microcosm. So you wouldn't think the world building would be as detailed as it is, but Sarah goes above and beyond in this book to build a world, and she gives us everything. We have communication between different realms, elements going on. We have multiple paranormal type style creatures. I mean, this book hits fae, vampires, werewolves, some snake people. We have some otherworldly like dog elements, and then we got some fucking mer people, okay? We're just hitting all the fucking things. Oh, and angels and demons and gods. Yeah, it's all over the gambit of different types of creatures. I'm gonna put this, see if I can put that there where it won't hit me. All different types of things, and she is pile driving this stuff at you. I mean, it is bam, 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 bam. It is all there. Sarah is not known for info dumping because her series do span time, but this, if I had to give Sarah a description of what info dumping was for Sarah J. Maas, it is this book, because you get so much information in a very quick, rapid fire way, almost so fast that you can't process it. There is a lot, and she gives you this entire world. She gives you this backstory of this war that happened. She gives you the rundown of the hierarchy. All just bam, bam, bam. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It is rapid fire like you're on a damn firing squad. Just bullets of world building coming at you. It's like, what's going on with the story? It's at that point. It's almost too much. But Sarah is a whiz with her words, and so you do get everything, but it's just so much at one time. Another thing that worked in this book was the twists and turns and revelations. Very, very classic Sarah. You got all of her big twists, all of her big reveals. No real new tricks in this book, just executed differently because of the type of story she was telling. She wasn't really telling a fantasy romance. She was giving us a very political mystery thriller in this book for sure. So all of her twists and turns, however they are there, they are just executed in a different way, and you take them a different way. Now, you're probably wondering, because I'm a huge Sarah J. Maas fan, if you've been following me at all, you know this, why I am not just like all smiles and just, oh my God, it's so amazing. Oh my God. Don't get me wrong, this book's fucking amazing. It's Sarah J. Maas, people. It's fucking amazing. But everything that I mentioned that worked also didn't work for me. And it's because this book is so different than anything I've ever experienced from Sarah J. Maas. I mean, all of her tricks are there. Her writing style is there. It's just, it feels so different because it's delivered in such a different way. So what didn't work in this is the fact that it's so different to her. Now, I am not a Sarah J. Maas professional by any shape or form. I literally started reading Sarah J. Maas April of 2022 was the first time I ever picked up one of her books. But since April of 2022, and it is March of 2023 right now, I have been reading a Sarah J. Maas book, 1 or 2 a month. And you start to see a writing style, a technique. You start to see how she does her reveals. You start to see how she builds her characters and the relationships. So there is a sense of, when I walked into this series, this being her third series, one series is entirely completed as far as we are aware of. The other one is completed with kind of a spin-off, so possibly you might get some more stuff later on. So you have some kind of previous concept of who she is an author. And walking to this, I felt like I was reading her for the very first time all over again, and I didn't know how to process that. I did not. I'm not going to sit here and say that I had a pleasant reading experience with this book, because there was a lot of points in this book that I was just kind of like, who is writing this fucking book right now? Like, I see Sarah, but I don't feel Sarah, if that makes any sense with this book, if that makes any sense. It was just so different than what I expected, which can be a fantastic thing for an author, that she can reinvent herself, but yet still hold some kind of semblance. But the thing is, I wasn't finding any real ironclad piece of like, oh, this is Sarah. This is Sarah's stuff right here, until the very end of the book. This is an 850 plus page book. And it wasn't until the last 250 pages that I started feeling like I was reading Sarah again. And is that a bad thing that an author can do that? Because authors should grow, they should expound, they should broaden their horizon. If they write the same thing over and over, we're going to get bored as readers. But I feel like this was so different from what I was used to, that I've experienced for the last year of my life, that it kind of caught me off guard. And it bothered me, because as I was reading this book, I felt like if I had actually picked this book up when I originally bought it, I would have read this book before I read Throne of Glass, before I read ACOTAR, and I don't feel like I would have continued with Sarah. I don't, because it's that different. It's that different. And so seeing that difference really scared me, because I could have lost out on all those stories. So I'm thankful that I didn't. That's why I told you the story about this as being the very first book I ever bought of Sarah's. And I'm very glad that I didn't, because I would have lost out on all those, because I don't feel like I would have actually continued based off the writing in this installment, because it's so different. But in the same vein, I would have never known what she could do. So this would have been my experience with her. But because of that, I wasn't invested in this book until the last 250 pages. Because the writing style was so... Even if I didn't know what Sarah wrote, I didn't care for the way the story was being delivered to me at this point. And this is the reason why I wasn't caring for, is the info dumping. The first part of this book, we are building this world immediately. Like, it is, we need to build the backstory, we need to build the world, we need to build the characters, we need to build their relationships, and I need to do it in a very small window, because there's a bigger arching plot other than this story, which is fine. But she gave so much of it at rapid fire pace that I almost couldn't keep up with it. I feel like she should have elongated it and maybe given us only portions of it and then built up later in later installments, which I'm pretty sure she's gonna fucking do, because she's amazing. But in this installment, I just didn't feel like she gave me too much. And for me to say you gave me too much detail, you gave me too much stuff to process, that's saying a lot, because I love world building. I love description. I love knowing all the ins and outs. But when I'm not even connected to any of the characters at this point, and you're giving this all to me, it means nothing. It means nothing at this point when I don't even have the connection of the characters. So that was a little depressing for me in this installment. The twists and turns. They were there. They had their big reveal moments. But because I did not have enough connection with the characters during these reveals, they didn't hit. This book opens up with a fucking murder. It opens up with a murder. Like, the story I told you about Danica, that's in like the first 50 pages. So to say that this book starts off slow is not the truth. But because you are not really connected to Danica and you're not really connected to Bryce, that murder doesn't mean shit. It didn't mean shit to me. I was just like, oh, well, okay, there's a big giant murder now. Shit, okay. Am I supposed to feel something? Because I wasn't connected to them. The twists and turns and reveals when they happen, I didn't have the connection with the characters to warrant the feeling that I know I'm supposed to have with her. I have a whole vlog playlist of me reading the ACOTAR series, and you can see the revelations and the reveals, and I will link it up here for you guys. And most of those vlogs are Sarah J. Maas books, and you can see the pain, you can see the shock, you can see the tears on me. I'm a very emotive person when I read my books. I am the one that screams, "What the fuck are you doing? I don't want to read this shit anymore," and I'm bawling my eyes out. That is me as a reader. And I didn't have it with this book. I had, the fuck is this bitch doing? I was emoting at what the author was doing, not what the characters were doing, because I didn't care about the characters. I didn't have enough fucking time with them before shit started going down. And I was just like, okay. So I've got a good grasp of this fucking world, but I have no idea how these characters really honestly fit into it, which I'm hoping will be further developed in further installments, for sure. This installment felt very rushed to me. It felt like Sarah was trying to get so much out because she has a bigger plan, and it's Sarah. So going back on my normal expectations of her, she does. There is some big plan that I know nothing about, and she's trying to get to it. She's giving me little glimpses of it, but I don't know what I'm looking at yet, which is fine, and I'm cool with that. But the whole book felt very, very rushed. It felt so rushed for me because it was just boom, 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 boom. I can't catch my fucking breath. And it's not I'm sitting on the edge of my seat not being able to catch my breath. It's you are giving me so much that I cannot comprehend it in my head at the same fucking time. And then you expect me to feel shit. It doesn't work that way. I need to be connected to feel. And I was not given enough time to connect to anything. The world, the characters, their connections to each other. I was not given enough time, enough instances and experiences with them to really get that connection in an 850 plus page book. Yeah. The characters themselves. Like I said, have no connection to the characters. None. There's 2 characters that I like in this book, and they're not even the main characters. Don't get me wrong. The characters are still very, very well written. They're very developed very well. I definitely see that they are going to have arcs going, and there's going to be definitely intrigue on both sides, good and bad for the characters. I know that's all there. But based off of this initial installment, there's only 2 characters I care about, and they're not the main ones. Nope. Not the main ones at all. What does that say? That was really, really disheartening for me. That was a real shock when I started breaking this book down for this review. That's one reason why this review has taken so long to do, because I don't really quite understand how I can love one thing and see her do it in an elevated level and a different format and not just be gushing all over it. And these characters, this story revolves around Danica, and she dies in the first part of the book. But we keep coming back to her. She's dead. I can't form a connection with a dead person. I can't. I'm supposed to, but I can't. I just can't. And it wasn't written in a way where I was able to. And Bryce, I want to like her. I really do, but I don't. I don't really feel anything for her. I think she made really stupid decisions. And I'm like, what? I get you're supposed to be this headstrong, Spitfire, but you're not listening to yourself. It bothered me. And Hunt, I really wanted to love him. And the reason I don't love him is not because of what he does in the book. It's because of, there wasn't really, I didn't feel anything for him. Now, Rune and Therion's our old merman guy, and Rune is the half-brother of Bryce. I dig their characters. Dig them, want more from them. And in the grand scheme of this 850-page plus book, they're maybe 10% of this book. Therion, maybe 5. Yeah, like, it's... I just wasn't connected. I wasn't given a chance to connect to these characters, so they just kind of are this for me right now. And it's really disheartening. But the big thing that I feel like didn't work in this book is that because there was so much given to you at one point in time, it lacked the strength. It lacked the strength that her previous installments do, because you have time to mull over and think and debate. And I wasn't given any of that in this installment. Now, with all that being said, I have a feeling that the second installment will not be like that, because we've got the world building out of the way. So I feel like the second installment is going to be more of those connections, those character developments between people. So I feel like all of these issues will be resolved. It's just, this was such a different experience for me. Now, for a spice rating, this thing only got a 2, and it was a fucking tease. It was. There is only one real good hookup scene, and I really wasn't even that into it because I didn't care about the connection between the characters. I didn't. I didn't. I could have taken it or left it. They could have been just friends with benefits, and I would have been fine with that more than romantic love interests. Their love felt insta, and that is not what I am used to for Sarah. Her romances, even if they're fated mates, that romance is still earned and built between those two, even if they have a fated mate component. It's still built. I didn't feel like there was any building. Probably because there wasn't. Because of the big twist reveal, which, out of all the reveals, was the one reveal that shocked me. And that's because it was right after our big hookup scene. And I was like, oh. But it was at that moment that I saw the Sarah that I'm used to. And that's when the last 250 pages started coming into play. And I started seeing all of the stuff I'm used to seeing from Sarah come into fruition. I saw the Sarah from the ACOTAR series, from the later on Throne of Glass series come out. And that's when I just fucking adored this book. This book, I almost didn't finish. I almost put this down because I was not feeling it. For it being 850 plus pages, I should have been more connected to this book at least 300. But I wasn't. I wasn't connected into the last 250 pages. But those last 250 pages bumped this book to a 4.5. Now, Sarah walks in as a 3. She already walks in as a 3. So it only went up 1.5 star. But those 250 pages are the reason why I really like this book. And this sounds so weird because of everything I just bashed. It's like, what did you actually like about this book? I liked this book. It's just everything that works also doesn't work. And the main thing is because I walked into this book with expectations of what I was going to see, and I was not given those. So, for my final thoughts, if you have not read this book, but you have read other Sarah J. Maas books, forget what you know. Forget it. Go in not expecting her normal tricks. Forget it, because you will lose the beauty of this book if you walk in expecting something. You will be disappointed. You will be lost. You will be caught off guard. Forget what you know about her and experience her in her own devices in this book. Now, I cannot actually say if I would have continued on with Sarah J. Maas if this was the very first installment I ever read. I don't think right now, as I sit here, I would. But I have the knowledge of what she wrote prior to it. I don't know what my answer would be if I didn't have the knowledge prior of what she wrote prior to it. So go into this book, if you have not read it, blind. And let me know what you think, if this is your very first Sarah J. Maas book. I do feel like the world building was a lot. Even despite what I know of Sarah and how she normally does her world building, if I saw another author other than Sarah do this, I would still say the same thing. There was a crap ton of world building in this book, and I feel like it should have been elongated and spread out over the installments. She had multiple plot lines. Maybe take some of those plot lines out that you need to give the world building to back those plot lines up and put them in another installment. Flesh it out more. Don't jam-pack so many different elements of the world in one installment. That was a main thing for me because it was just so much. And another thing that I have, a final thought on this book, is that during the SJM read along, there's live shows after every single reading installment. And I was supposed to be part of this live show, but I was only halfway through the book when the live show happened. And I didn't want to be spoiled. I also was not really invested in the book at the time of the live show, and I was halfway through the book. So I still really wasn't invested. I was actually debating putting it down and just not picking it up again because I didn't want to. I wasn't invested. But after I did finish the book, I went back and watched it. And a very common thread among first-time readers of this book was that they feel the same way. They didn't really know how to take it. It's not that they didn't like the book. They just really didn't know how to receive this book because they walked in with an expectation and those expectations weren't met. But the book didn't suck. The book isn't bad. The book isn't poorly written. It's very well written. It pulls all of Sarah's tricks. It does give you the reveals and the twists, but if you walk in with expectations of what you're going to get, you are going to be disappointed in this. And that was a very common thread among first-time readers. Another commonality that I saw is a lot of people who are reading this for the second time, who held this same belief, agreed with me on how I feel during the first time reading, ended up loving this book the second go-around. Now, I don't know what that says for a book. Does it say that the book is not strong enough on its own in its first installment reading, that you have to read it multiple times to really appreciate a book, to really appreciate everything that's going into said book? Or is that a sign of a really great book that you can reread it multiple times and still feel like you're getting something new every single time? That your opinion can change every single time, because people's opinions do change on rereads. You read books at one point in time in your life, you're going through certain things at the time, so you relate differently. You can read a book that you hated 10 years ago and read it now and absolutely love it, but you hated it 10 years ago because you're a different fucking person at that point. That's completely understandable. But to have that polar of a change and it to be so common among large groups of people that they feel this wasn't very strong, that wasn't a really good representation of who she was. But on a second reread, oh my God, I'm seeing all these things that, yes, totally make sense. And I missed it the first time. And oh, there it is. Because now you're walking in a second reread without those expectations that you had prior. So is it really a bad book if you need to read it a second time because you can learn new things every single time? Or is it a good book because of that, because every time you reread it, you get something new and it feels like the first time all over again? I don't know. So that's definitely a final thought that I'm still processing. But all in all, I did give this book 4.5 stars, and I'm continuing with the series, not just because it's part of the read-along, and I am going to finish this read-along because I'm going to say at the end of this year that I've completed all of Sarah J. Maas's published works, because I believe that is an achievement that I like to have. Thank you. I want my points. But I do genuinely want to continue the series because those last 250 pages, that was a Sarah that I know, but it was a Sarah that I know in an elevated version, giving it to me in a different way. So knowing this, going into the next installment, I for sure will not be expecting Throne of Glass or ACOTAR. I will be expecting Crescent City because now I know how she's writing it. That's my review on House of Earth and Blood, Crescent City, Volume 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you so much for everybody who voted to make this the winner of my January TBR poll. Sorry it took so long to get you this review, but as you can see, I was very torn on this book. So I will see you guys all soon with another video. Bye, guys.